Hello and welcome back to another episode of Nick Tiffany's Movie Reviews, coming at you online and in print format at nicktiffany.com. You can also find us anywhere you get your podcasts and even in video on YouTube, TikTok, Reels, wherever you get your social media, pretty much you can find us. Today we're kind of continuing with a trend, or I'd say a segment trend, just in the realm of IMAX and especially re-releases. We just covered Tenet, we're going to cover Tenet right now. We just covered Dune Part 1, which had its IMAX reissue ahead of Dune Part 2. And now we're at the Tenet reissue, which comes, at a fortuitous time right before Christopher Nolan may or may not win Best Director at the Oscars for Oppenheimer, a film that he left Warner Brothers from to go do. And a lot of that has to do with how Warner Brothers handled the release of Tenet, how it handled the whole HBO Max day and date release thing anyways. Tenet, if I recall, it was kind of a later 2020 release. Nolan really did not want it going straight to video, just kind of like they had done with, I want to say they did that for Wonder Woman. Maybe Wonder Woman was in theaters. I don't quite remember. It's a little hazy right now. But what I do remember is Nolan pushing back, getting, a mild release window. I want to say maybe it was like October or so of that year of 2020. And I can remember that just because, for a few reasons. I went with my mom and my dad, and we were probably three of maybe, I don't know, 7 people in the whole theater at IMAX. Everybody had to wear a mask inside except for when you were eating your popcorn or drinking your drink. That whole fun, like, all right, granted, there really wasn't anyone in there policing it, but it's like, well, if I'm eating or drinking extendedly, the whole COVID was just a time. That was really something. But I just remember, like there was this weird feeling of like, should we even be here in the theater right now? Christopher, I can't remember if Christopher Nolan came on to thank you at the beginning of the movie. Like, everyone's pretty much done since COVID now, from Tom Cruise to every other director and star. But I just remember going into Tenet, knowing next to nothing about it, obviously knowing it's a Christopher Nolan film, so feeling like I'm not going to miss this, knowing that this man films for IMAX, so definitely going to witness that there. And I think, other than coming out of the movie confused, unsure of half of what was said, and just, really impressed by some of the sound design, the funniest memory that I have that I just associate with seeing Tenet at the movies with was just my mom and her reaction. Because upon watching the reissue in IMAX, I can confirm, and even having seen Dune Part 1 and Part 2 in IMAX, where you've got the wailing, all of that aside, Tenet in IMAX is the single loudest movie I think I've ever been to. And we're talking, just production, design, audio design, everything cranked to 11. Whether it's the guy smacking the back of a van to let them know to drive on. It's just the loud, like, it feels like you're there. When the airplanes, just turbines are blowing, right about to explode, that whirring sound, it was like, wow, I feel like I am on an airfield right now, on the runway, listening to this. I can feel some of the vibrations from that. I'm like, good God. The gunfighting in the movie, especially at the beginning in that opera house, just because of how the sound maybe was condensed in those tight places, just freaking, I'm like shaking in my seat. I look, so I took my wife, or I should say my wife very graciously agreed to go with me, because it was the day we were getting back from our honeymoon. They started the screenings for this, I think, on the Friday that we had left for our rehearsal dinner. And it was going to be playing through the next Wednesday, which is going to be the night that we were coming home from the honeymoon. And so, laying the groundwork, it's like, hey, it's just, it would be interesting to go see again, because we've watched it at home, with her and my best friend. We watched it a couple times, I would say, at least in the last, 2 years, with the subtitles, with more of an understanding of what happened because of the last viewing. And it was just the funniest thing, because she was like, all right, we'll go. I'm down, we'll eat beforehand, but it's like, let's double check, or like, let's look at Reddit, or like, let's look online and make sure, number one, we know what's going to be happening. Is there anything that we should be looking for in this viewing? And so we're eating, having some pizza, looking, kind of going back and forth. And it's like, okay, you know what? Every time they hit the turnstile, this means they're either moving forward or backward through time. And you've got to go until you hit another turnstile if you're going to reverse that. And be on the lookout for Neil's little bag and where it might pop up. And I swear to God, like, it's ironic because we spent so much time like, oh, we got this, we're on top of it, I know what to look for, I know the whole thing. As we were watching it, I felt like I was getting more confused. I was like, okay, so I saw him go back there, which means he's got to come out at some point over here. But you can see, he sees himself leaving that, which means he must go in. And I mean, it was almost funny. I'm there at the movie like, okay, I need to just like not think about this anymore and just watch an experience, which I would say is a lot of what the interweb would tell you to do. A lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people on Instagram, Facebook, the general consensus around Tenet. Most people don't know entirely what's going on, but there's just a lot of really cool shit in there, from the protagonist being the main character's name. This, everyone's doing the hand sign for Tenet, all of this different stuff. I mean, there's just tons of cool gadgetry and really intriguing ways that they get around. For me, I think learning more about how they were doing some of the sequences in reverse, and the idea of like, no, I don't want to like just rewind the footage and have you watch this. The fight that John David Washington has against himself, they choreographed it both ways, so he knows both parts. And I'd seen some behind the scenes clip of it, and maybe it's just because they were talking about it because the reissue's coming out. But looking at, I don't know, just how well they knew every move that had to come, selling it like they're moving backwards and forwards at the same time. That was really impressive. I remember that they actually did crash the plane into that little airport, spaceport deal that they had built. The Freeport was something, I don't know why, in this viewing just like struck me as like, man, that's just freaking genius, because it sounds like something rich people would do. This whole idea of like, well, to import my $1 million art piece is going to cost X amount more. Why don't I just house it somewhere at an airport, free of all these different rules and regulations? We don't ever have to import it. And if I want to go look at it, I can just go there. I just like little, I don't know. Christopher Nolan's mind works in a really cool way. Just from sequences to different companies or things he creates in his movies, from Inception and all of that stuff. Like, I've certainly been watching a bunch of his films again in the last 6 months or so. And so just in each film, there's always a few sequences that really stand out, or you're just like, who thinks of this, dude? Like, this is awesome. It works. It does work well. Yeah, it's cool to watch Robert Pattinson, knowing at one point during the filming, yes, he gives Nolan this Oppenheimer book that would eventually set him on the path to making Oppenheimer, but also knowing that Robert Pattinson dipped out for a couple days to go audition for Batman, and Christopher Nolan totally knew it. But the role he plays in here is kind of like a more spy-ish Bruce Wayne. I know a lot of people who didn't enjoy his moody take on Bruce Wayne, which I thought was valid, because that's one of the many forms of Batman and Bruce Wayne that we experience in the comics. But seeing him kind of play this suave, suited, debonair man, I mean, it was cool. It was cool. And he and John David Washington have such a unique and enjoyable chemistry together. There was this whole side where you're watching it and John David Washington doesn't know Neil. The protagonist doesn't know Neil, but Neil knows him, from ordering him his Coke or the Diet Coke at the very beginning, to little things he knows about him from drinking on the job, all sorts of stuff. It's interesting to watch how Pattinson plays the character, because at times it does feel like he's holding back, if only because he wants to share in this experience with his friend, who is not necessarily his best friend yet, or doesn't have the same memories that he does. But the two are just enjoyable. There's so many moments that I knew were funny watching at home, but seeing it in the theater again, Washington plays such a cool spy. One who is confident for sure, but one who also just looks good while he does things. And he knows he looks good. And that's where some of that cockiness comes from. Even his little, the 2 seconds Michael Caine's in the film, and you've got the snobby restaurant guy talking to him about, you certainly cannot take that to go, sir. I will not be bagging that. I don't know. There were just moments that totally, they didn't catch me off guard, but they caught me by surprise by how much I laughed or how much I enjoyed them. And I think, the more I think about the film and the more I read about it, the more I understand kind of the war with the future aspect, understanding how they send things back and how those could be used against us now. The film plays with a really interesting narrative, I think, just this whole idea of, I think it's Neil who kind of brings it up maybe towards the end, so spoiler alert, but, even if we know the outcome, if we have done this today and we know that this will prevent X, Y, and Z from happening, I don't think we need to do anything else. Whatever's going to happen in the future will take care of itself, or whatever was supposed to happen in the past has already taken care of itself. And so you've got Washington talking to Pattinson, and he's like, that last bro moment where it's like, we get up to some things in the future, you got a future in the past, all this kind of stuff. Who hired you? It's all been a temporal pincer. But Pattinson says something to the effect of like, just because we know the outcome doesn't mean that we should do nothing about it. And I don't know why I was having this talk with someone at work, but this idea of like, if you knew you were going to get a master's degree, or you knew you were going to be an astronaut 6 years from now, maybe it's this weird temporal side of like, theoretically, yes, in 6 years you will be an astronaut. But if for 6 years you do nothing to put yourself in that position, that doesn't give a lot of faith in the mechanics of the world as far as, is it just going to fall out of the sky and land in your lap? But so Pattinson's reasoning for needing to go back and not enjoying his time and friendship with Washington is, it's like, hey, I'm not going to trust things to just do nothing. If I'm the only certainty that there is, then I need to be proactive. And I thought it was a good lesson for like, I think a lot of people love the idea of manifestation and all these different things in real life and luck and all of this. And I think, there are certain affirmations you can tell yourself that will put your mind into this position of, okay, like whatever my goal is, whatever I'm trying to reach, I'm going to be doing things, practicing, living, breathing, whatever it is, till I'm in that position. Or like, it's like the dress for the job that you want, not the one that you have. There is something about that mindset or the state of mind that you can control that will put you further to those goals, or maybe put you on that path towards where you want to be. And so watching Tenet is just fascinating, understanding what they're working for, where they have to go on the timeline to work towards that, to fix things over here. A lot of it still kind of does feel convoluted, and I feel like even watching it casually, you're still probably going to scratch your head a little bit, and it's like, okay, like I got like 90% of that, but I'm still hung up on how did this, there's a few things here and there where I'm just kind of like, we'll chalk it up to movie magic. We'll chalk it up to maybe they don't know, maybe I know, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. But Elizabeth Debicki's great in the film. Just this hollow shell of a person based on everything that, oh gosh, why am I blanking on his name now? Mr. Belfast. It's going to come to me. But, oh gosh. And he's my Shakespeare guy. See, now I just got to look it up because now it's going to kill me. And now it's just annoying that I'm losing my movie cred as I'm speaking. And clearly I'm not typing things up well enough to figure it out. Kenneth Branagh. Damn it. You know what? Hamlet's not going to forgive me for that one. But Kenneth Branagh just puts so much fear into her character in the audience that, you completely understand all the reservations she has, this feeling like there is nothing for her to hope in this world. All she can do is exist to keep her child alive or to maintain some kind of contact. So, of course, Christopher Nolan tap it into the mother and child timeline and the idea of it. In all his films, there's always either like a dead mother or a mother who's not around or something that's happened. So, hopefully, we know she gets a better ending than most. And as some would point out too, she speaks about watching that woman dive off of his boat and feeling like, I wish I could be as free as that woman. I wish I could feel that release to get away from him and everything. And so there are, some really cool moments. I forget what John David Washington says, it's like a sense of posterity or something like that, where it feels like half the time I'm like, you're just making shit up, but it sounds cool and it works out on film, so you can almost get away with it. So that's where I subscribe a little bit to this belief of just like, even if you don't understand it, Tenet's a cool movie. I don't know when we're going to get a Christopher Nolan James Bond. I don't know if we will. I think we should. I know he's expressed interest in it, but for now, this is the closest that we're going to get, and I think Tenet's freaking awesome. And, it's a weird one, but because Christopher Nolan has such a wide range of incredible movies, it's probably somewhere more towards the middle of the pack for me, or like lower middle of the pack. Probably around where Dunkirk is. I really enjoyed Dunkirk visually. I think it's due for a rewatch for me for sure. Again, playing around with those timelines definitely to me was more of a spectacle at the time, so maybe that'll change on a rewatch. But it's just tough when these guys like Denis Villeneuve, freaking James Cameron, guys who tell stories at such a level just continue to put out awesome movies, and you're like, damn, I don't know where to put this, man. Like, because every other thing that you've done is also either at least very good, if not really good. So, Tenet, definitely more. It would call it a Nolan guilty pleasure. Still enjoy it. Still would be one that, like, if people just wanted a cool movie to watch or an interesting, like, ooh, all right, I've never thought of it that way. I've never thought of time like this. I would watch Interstellar first, probably. But then I would show him Tenet, if only to be like, all right, well, now we're going to do the time warp and have fun playing along. Just enjoy the ride. So I'm really glad that they put this out again in the reissue. Even if we came out a little confused and a little bit, less able to hear, the movie was great. It was a cool experience. And I'm glad that at least Warner Brothers is trying to repair some of that relationship with Christopher Nolan, because they lost the good one. They lost the GOAT. So this is also, I think, the 10-year anniversary of Interstellar this year. So in keeping with all these IMAX reissues, I vividly remember seeing Interstellar. It was at the Houston Marquee 23, I think. A massive IMAX screen there. And I want to say it was only like a critics only screening or something. I sat near the top row, and it was just mind blowing. And I've maybe watched it twice on DVD since then. I am praying that they put that one out again. Keep repairing that relationship with Nolan and give us more Interstellar, because that one's a doozy. Thank you guys, as always, for humoring me, stepping back in time a little bit, talking about not quite new releases, but I would say new enough releases. It's been fun, kind of sidestepping a few movies that I'm sure were decent. I'm not even going to say, would I rather have gone and seen Madam Web over the Tenet reissue? No. Was I going to go see the Bob Marley One Love over the Tenet reissue? Probably not. There's this, like, the upside sometimes to not always attending or being able to attend early critic screenings, is there are a lot of people I do trust, both in the critic world and I would say in the YouTube online social world, where I know my taste enough, and I feel like I know a few people's taste well enough to gauge, like, okay, yeah, this is a must. This is like you could probably wait for DVD or streaming, so I'm sure we'll get to those eventually. But as far as limited theatrical runs go, this is what's important, and IMAX is killing it this year. So thanks again, you guys. You can catch anti-movie reviews on all social media networks, podcast platforms, and YouTube, and anywhere you get your videos. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.